Hello guys, Scott Fratcher here again from the Yacht Orion, a 90-foot charter catamaran. And today's subject is how to get fired and how to fire somebody. So let's come up with a scenario here. You went out, you found yourself a job, and of course maybe you got on a boat because everybody else who's gotten on that boat hasn't gotten along because the captain or the senior crew, they may be just a little bit kind of out of the ordinary, let's say. So all kinds of people running boats, and you may find positions that are opening up on a boat where they start to just go through deckhands. I think there was one boat that I knew of that worked up in Alaska, and for the year they had 12 crew, and they averaged a new crew member every 4 days. So you may be getting fired through absolutely no fault of your own. Or you may be getting fired because you did one of the many things that people get fired for. But now we're coming to the point where you're actually going to get set down and get fired, or you're the person who's actually going to sit the guy down and fire him. So I want you to think about these words that I'm going to say, and I want you to memorize them. If you think that you're getting fired, that's probably why you're over here reading or watching this video. And none of this comes from a lawyerly perspective, by the way. This all comes from common sense. It all comes from years of having things like this happen in the field. So you're walking in to get fired, and the words that I want you to remember are: thank you very much for the opportunity. I've learned a lot on this job. And that's it. And you say nothing else. And I want you to really put this into your mind, and I want you to keep this in your mind for the whole rest of this discussion on this topic. See, what happens is people go in to get fired, and 50% of the time, the senior staff is not 100% sure that they want to let the guy go. There's some discussion about it. Everybody's not quite sure. 2 people are saying, give the guy a few more days. 2 people are saying, let's get rid of him. I can get another guy here at the dock and have him here tomorrow. We might as well start afresh while we have the opportunity. And so there's this discussion taking place. And then you walk in and you're being fired. And you may at that point say something out of rash and the shock of being fired that seals the deal. And in fact, you may say something so bad out of a quick quip that at that point, your reference is blown also. And so I want you to say, I want you to practice this a couple times before you go in. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've learned a lot on this job. And then you reach out your hand and you shake your hand of the captain, and then you step back and you wait for everything else that he has to say. And he may just say, okay, good, this is Ralph. Ralph's going to escort you to your cabin, get the rest of your stuff out of your cabin, and he'll escort you off the boat. And we'll talk about Ralph's part in this job in a minute, or in this procedure in a minute. So, and if that's the response that you get, then boom, the deal is done, the decision's been made, and there's nothing more to talk about. Except that you have greatly protected your reputation by not reacting, not throwing a fit, not saying, oh, well, I'm going to go put something up on Facebook. Oh, where's my money? Where's this? Where's that? And the next thing you know, there's a big confrontation taking place. And that's to be avoided at all costs. This is the moment when your professionalism as a professional crew member has to be 100%, has to be stellar, has to be exemplary. So, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've learned a lot on this job. You step back, you wait for what else the captain has to say. He may start hemming and hawing, happens all the time. Yeah, I really don't want to let you go, and there's a big hole you're going to leave a big hole in the department, and I got to find somebody else. If you hear something like that, here's a dodge that you can try. I don't know if it's a dodge. Here's a mature tactic that sometimes can negotiate a way out of being fired. You might say, okay, I understand, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me. let me make just a suggestion. If you have to find somebody else, it may take you 2 or 3 days to bring that other person in. How about if I stay on the boat for those 2 or 3 days, I'll keep my mouth shut, I won't talk to anybody, I won't do anything, I'll just do my job and I'll fill that position while you find the other guy. So if it takes you 2 days, and then you're not in a rush, you got 2 or 3 days to bring in somebody else. I'll have all my bags set up, so all you gotta do is give me the nod, I'll pull my sheets off my bed, toss them over at the laundry, pick up my bag, and I'll be gone. And then that way, somebody will still be cleaning the boat for the next 3 days. And if you were just kind of borderline, just kind of on the edge, and the captain takes you up on that, you may just save your job. And it happens because now the captain, he probably has a list of like 70 things to do, and hire a new deckhand or get another steward coming is just one of the many things that he has to do before the pending departure or before the charter or the owner's visit or whatever it is, or the reason that you're particularly on the boat at that time, and why this excess crew is needed. So that's one particular option. You can also, at that point, like as you're turning to leave, you can say, any advice for my next job? And you may actually get them why you're really being let go. You didn't keep your room clean. Why can't people keep their room clean? You're in a professional position living with a bunch of other people. Keep your room clean. Make your bed every day. Nobody wants to say that a second time. How about you didn't clean the bathroom? Man, I'm getting complaints. You're leaving soap scum all over the place. Well, they talked to you about it twice, I mean, what do you expect them to do? You expect them to like wake you up out of bed and have a big deal about it? When somebody talks to you about something the first time on a boat, consider that your warning. They come back and say a second time, dude, you're leaving skid marks in the toilet. It's really gross. And it's the second time somebody talked to you about it. You can bet that is going through the senior staff right then, and everybody else then is watching your performance with a critical eye, because suddenly they're getting complaints about your position there. Maybe at the end of a work day, you don't have the work ethic, or nobody's ever showed you the importance of stopping 15 minutes before the end of the workday, rounding up all your gear, coiling down the hose, cleaning up your work area, sweeping it up, and putting everything that you're working with in a pile that's off on the side so nobody else has to look at it or trip over it in the middle of the night. And so maybe that's it. And so this has the possibility to open up a discussion with the captain who is letting you go at that point, where you can turn back and say, well, I didn't realize that I had to do that cleanup at the end of the night, and nobody mentioned that, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to put my stuff away, and I'm happy to spend an extra 15 minutes a day of my own time cleaning the bathroom. And you may at that point be able to negotiate your way back into a job, because it's possible that a new deckhand, you maybe just didn't quite get the full respect that people will take the time and the training of you. Maybe they kind of just didn't quite get along with you right at the start, and so you're not getting that extra little bit of training of how things should be going, and that allows the other staff who has to deal with you to kind of find it easy to be fed up. And so this is your point now. This is your last ditch effort to negotiate. And you really got to be here with your mind, because the decision's been made. They got you in the room. And so you can't whine and be trying to argue your job position at that point. The decision's made. You're being let go. So really, you need to be walking off the boat as quickly as possible as soon as Ralph is through with you. And we're going to discuss Ralph's position, who's the guy who's going to escort you off the boat in a minute. And so, but you do have that last little bit of an opportunity. And if you're listening to this video, then you may be able to walk into the captain's room with a game plan. So you'll have this in the back of your mind. So when you walk in to be fired, you have a couple negotiating tactics here. You can game out a little bit of how this firing discussion could go, and be ready with a few casual questions after you've already thrown out your "thank you very much for the opportunity. I've learned a lot on this job," which kind of took the captain back a little bit, because he was waiting for the argument. Because firing somebody, which we're going to go on the other side of it, how to fire someone here, and for the other half of this in just a moment. Firing someone, it's a drag. You know, you got to call the guy in. You know, you've already been living with him. You know, you already got kind of a relationship with him. And you know, if he did something on the spot that was just like over the top, you know, released a winch under load, you know, went to the wrong spot when he was docking and came, you know, and you try to talk to him about it in the middle of a docking and you know, he's belligerent. Well, that's easy. You know, you just, okay, step back from the cleat, please. Step back from the cleat. Okay, I just want you to stay in that place right there till we finish docking. It's an easy, done deal. It's just like, you know, it's a game changer. But normally what happens is people end up in the firing booth without having that final straw. They're just living on the edge of the final straw. And some people, know thyself, some people live on the edge of the final straw. That's how they live their life. They're one step ahead of the debt collector. They're one step away from the jail cell. They're one step away from a divorce. And they just figure out where the line is, and they ride just on the edge of the line. And if that's happening in your life, because a lot of people that have that set of circumstances find their way to the boating world because they're looking for an escape. And so these guys show up in the boating world and they get hired, and you should know that. And if that's not you, then that's something else that you might point out at the final discussion of your hiring, is that you're not one of those guys who lives one step from the edge. But if you are, then chances are that they'll have recognized that and they'll be trying to put you off the boat, and there is no more discussion. So you got a few plans, you got a few ideas that you can take in, you got that line. Now how do you walk off the boat? When you're being fired, normally what happens, what should happen, and you can request to have this happen, is that another crew member will escort you to your room where you can pack up all your belongings, and off the boat you go. Now, why should you request this? Why should the captain expect a crew member to be with you at all times while you're departing the boat? You should request this, a crew member escort you, because if something happens to the boat the very next day, let's just say the boat goes to depart the dock the next day and the engine blows up. Engines blow up all the time, but there would always be doubt. There would always be doubt. Now, what about that guy that we let go? You know, that deckhand, I'm just saying, you know, I don't know, but you let him go. He wandered around the boat for 2 hours, started up the engine the next day, and the engine blew up. Well, you're protected from that by requesting a crew member to stay with you while you get off the boat. You're protected from that possibility, from tarnishing your reputation. And on the other hand, from the captain's position, having a crew member escort the crew member who's being fired off of the boat, it prevents all kinds of crazy things from happening. It prevents him from storming down the hallway and releasing a bunch of tension. And it prevents him from going and finding a crew member that he kind of has in mind, maybe like had worked against him and got him fired. And now he wants to go and have one last little quick cold cock from the side. Bam! That all happens in the galley. Now the captain's got a big drama that he's got to deal with because now he's had a crew altercation that's happening downstairs. Whereas all of this doesn't happen so much because you've got a crew member that's escorting the second fired crew member off the boat. Now, the guy who's going to be escorting a crew member off the boat should have a little bit of a chat beforehand so that he knows what he's doing, and he's got a game plan. And his game plan should be trying to keep the guy calm that he's escorting off the boat. And he can counsel him just a little bit. He can say things to him like, look, dude, best thing you can do right now, pack up your bags, don't say anything to anyone, smile, walk off the boat with your head held high. I'll get you to the gangway. You'll be on your way. Done deal. And so the guy, who I was calling Ralph, but the guy who's the escorting crew member, the trusted crew member who's taking the fired crew member off of the boat, now that guy has a little bit of a game plan. And his game plan is to be talking positive, talking calm, and keeping the fired crew member packing his bags and getting him off the boat as quickly as possible, and trying to route him around all the rest of the crew so that there isn't an altercation. Once he's off the boat, if he comes back on the boat, well, that's a big deal. That now a crew member that's been fired and then comes back and climbs on the boat, that's a big deal. He can't do that, and you shouldn't do that. You should know that once you're off the boat, you're off the boat. In fact, you shouldn't even be going around there and hanging around as guys do, because it's like the puppy who's been put out of the house and now he hangs out around the back door. And, you know, crew members do that, and you shouldn't do that. You should know. You go, how do you get your next job? Now you go to the crew house, find a crew house around there. There'll be a bunch of other crew there, and now you start your process. Watch one of my other videos. See how to get onto a cruising boat. Start the dock walk. Print up your applications and your CVs and start walking the dock. So I hope you don't need this video, but it does happen. And keep in mind, and one other thing. Now you're off the boat and you're back at the crew house. And now everybody's going to be sitting around the table bitching about the different boats that they've been on. And this is what happens, because now who's at the crew house? Well, the guys who didn't make it, the disgruntled people, right? That's who's at the crew house. You got the wannabes who are trying to enter the industry. Then you got a whole nother sect of people that entered the industry, got on a boat, lasted 2 weeks, and then got told you're not cleaning the toilet enough. You know, you plateaued. You plateaued on the job, which means that, like, you figured out how to polish stainless, and that's pretty much where it ended. You figured out almost how to clean the deck, and that's where it ended. And you didn't continue to progress up the chain of skill sets. And that is something that people get tossed off the boats for, because the captain will see that, the crew, the senior staff will see, and they're watching for this. Everybody's always watching for this. So what happens is that a guy comes and he learns a few procedures and then can't really learn any more procedures. And then the senior staff will be, no, I've had it with him. No, I've talked to him about it twice. I'm not talking to him about it again. They'll start to say things like that. And then what you might watch for as a crew member is some of the senior staff will just stop dealing with you. They talk to you for the first couple days. Then after that, they just start ignoring you. But some other senior staff, you got, let's say, you got a chief mate and a first mate. You might have a chief mate, first mate, second mate. You got a chief engineer. You got an assistant engineer. You might have a bosun. So there's a bunch of people up there that are a core staff of the boat that you're joining. And so that core staff will see a new crew member and they'll try to help them out because it's for the good of the vessel, and that's what everybody's doing. We're all a team. And so, but eventually, after maybe just a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, some of the staff will just give up on you because they say, he's not any, like the chief engineer. Why is the chief engineer going to talk to some new guy on the boat? You want to talk about electrical theorem and electrical formulas and all that? Why is the chief engineer going to waste his time talking to some new guy about boat things, because they're so far out on the end of the spectrum of skill sets that there's no real reason to be interacting, except maybe oftentimes the engineers handle the stern during a docking, and so because then they're close to the engine room, see? And so then they handle the stern lines during a docking, and they may talk to you then. So, but the other senior staff, maybe they talk to you a little bit about this is how you clean, this is how you adjust the lines, this is how I want the dock lines held or coiled down at the end of every docking, and then you don't really get that. The guy doesn't really get that. The crew member imaginary crew member that we're talking about. I say you because, see, I'm always talking to the deckhands, So the deckhands that are on board, we have these discussions all the time, because all that everybody else that these new guys want to do is they want to progress up the career path. How do I get myself a boat? How do I get a better job? How do I get higher paying? How do I get a vacation pay? That's what's going through their mind. And so these are the discussions that we have all the time, just like this right here. This would be like a before dinner discussion while we're setting the table. I may be saying exactly what I'm saying right here, except now I'm putting it out on the YouTube, but this is normally what we would be talking to deckhands and crew about. Okay, so you got the guy. We're going to go back to our scenario one more time, and we're going to close this up. Otherwise, this will be like a rambling 45 minutes, and nobody wants to hear that much about how to get fired. So everybody knows their position, right? The captain's going to fire the guy. The guy's going to say, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've learned a lot here. Oh, wait, we were back on the crew house. Oh, I remember. Okay, so at the crew house, what do you say? You say, oh, that was a good opportunity. I learned a lot on that job. And that's it. And everybody else will be trying to get stories out of you, all the crazy stuff that happened on the boat. They'll all be digging for information. Half of them will be digging for information because when you come back to the crew house, they know that there's a position that just opened up on that boat and they want to know all about it. And now, how do you give a reference for that boat? Well, basically what you say is, I needed a job, so I went over there. It's a rough boat to be on. But you need a job. Go over and try to get the job and do your best. That's what I would say. Even though you would know, unless it's something dangerous happening. Most of the time it's not something dangerous. Normally it's just a whole bunch of conflict happening on a boat that has people that need a very subservient crew member who can do his job without saying anything, without really talking very much. There's a lot of boats like that there's kind of drama going up on the upper echelon. And so when you get on those boats, then you do your best to keep your eyes low and do your job and wait it out because you're building up sea time and you're the new guy. So that's what you have to do, and not expecting anybody to change for you. Instead, you just being there and trying not to hear anything that anybody else is saying except for what needs to be heard for work purposes, and the rest of the time staying out of the way. And 2 weeks will go by, 3 weeks will go by, a month will go by, 2 months will go by, and you'll be accepted. And all of a sudden, now you'll be one of the regular crew members. And that's how we're hoping that this all goes. Okay, that was it. I hope that wasn't too rambling. Anyway, guys, good luck. I hope you don't need this video.